Well, good morning, welcome to our daily psalm, which today is Psalm 24. Psalm 24. And whatever the original and intended setting was for Psalm 24, and several have been imagined, it's certainly about being ready for the arrival of the King. And to be ready for the King, we need to know what sort of King he is so we can make proper preparations. Which is why Dale Ralph Davis in his commentary divides Psalm 24 into three sections, which it falls into very naturally. Three sections to tell us how big the King is in verses 1 and 2, how holy the King is in verses 3 to 6, and how mighty the King is in verses 7 to 10. So let's jump straight in to Psalm 24 verse 1. The earth is the Lord's. Now, just pause there for a moment, because that's actually the wrong way around. The wording is the wrong way around. Right words, wrong order. In Hebrew poetry, emphasis is placed on by putting the most important word first in the line. So the earth, as is translated here, is not the most important thing. The Lord is the thing that's being emphasized in Hebrew poetry. His name comes first. So the verse should read, "The Lord's is the earth and all that fills it, the compass of the world and all who dwell therein." It's worth us taking another pause, really, just to let the words of verse 1 sink in, because this is a very big and bold claim. The earth, the whole planet, everything that fills it, everything belongs to God and no one else. Oh, plenty of other people will lay claim to it. I lay claim to some of it. But whether it's acknowledged or not, it is all God's. His is the name tag on every molecule of creation, human or otherwise. So the firmament and the Faroe Islands and the forests and the French and the first Americans, and even my fridge, they are all God's. Why? Well, verse 2 tells us, "For he," and the emphasis is right this time, "he has founded it upon the seas and set it firm upon the rivers of the deep." There's two verbs in that verse. For he has founded it. It refers to a past event. It's the correct translation. This is referring to God and his work of creation in the first instance. But the second verb, "and set it firm," should really be "sets it." It's more of a present tense, more of a sense of God continuing to care for and sustain what he has created. So verse 1 and 2 are intended to convey a sense that God is in charge, that all of this world is his, and that we can live in his world safe in the knowledge that he is sovereign over all of it. In the world of Psalm 24, at the time of its writing, of course, the indigenous belief was that there were a number of pagan gods who were at war with one another, and in so doing made life for humankind somewhat precarious. A bit of a nerve-wracking existence, because you never knew when the pagan gods were going to war and you get caught up in it. So instead, Psalm 24 asserts that the world is infused with the stability which comes from the one true God being in charge of it all. And a sense of that first two verses brings to mind in the New Testament Paul writing to the church in Colossae, in Colossians 1 verse 17, where he writes, "Christ himself is before all things, and in him all things hold together." So the world has a degree of steadiness about it, says Psalm 24, 1 and 2, because it is God's, and his Christ, which we get from the New Testament, kind of glues it together, holds it in his hands, which of course are scarred from his sacrifice to ensure that there is good in the world. Let's go on to verse 3. And if verses 1 and 2 are about God being in charge, he's not so in charge that he is high and removed and cannot be approached. God is both awesome, and verse 3, also approachable. Verse 3, who shall ascend the hill of the Lord? Probably referring to Jerusalem. Or who can stand in his holy place? Probably referring to the temple in Jerusalem. Well, this is who. Verse 4, those who have clean hands and a pure heart, who have not lifted up their soul to an idol, nor sworn an oath deceitfully. So the one who can come up the hill of the Lord and into the presence of the Lord, into the temple, is one who shares God's holiness. And verse 4 gives us a thumbnail sketch of what that personal holiness looks like. It's both something which is outward, involves our hands and what we do, and it's both an inward, it involves our heart, the core of us. And it involves wholehearted and singular devotion to God. The second half, who have not lifted up their soul to an idol, nor sworn an oath deceitfully. This is not someone who is where their allegiances is separated. This is, I am committed, wholly devoted solely to God. Now, I don't know how you react to verses 3 and 4. Who can ascend? Someone who's holy. But hang on a minute, that's not us, is it? I mean, who is holy? So who can ascend the hill of the Lord, be in God's presence? Answer, well, no one. At least not on their own. Because we also look at this through the lens of the New Testament. Because it isn't no one can be in God's presence, but actually everyone could be in God's presence, because we're thrown back into Jesus is making the sacrifice for us to be able to do this very thing. To ascend the hill of the Lord as those who have been made holy, both inwardly and outwardly. Let's read on, verse 5. They, those who have got this, who have been given this holiness, they shall receive a blessing from the Lord, a just reward from the God of their salvation. Just in the sense it's never earned, but it is given on the basis of Christ's winning it for us. And then verse 6, so here's an example of the kind of person who can ascend the hill of the Lord in God's holiness. Such is the company of those who seek him, of those who seek your face. Now my translation then has, O God of Jacob, but the O God of isn't there, it's just Jacob. So, such is the company of those who seek him. Here's an example of someone who can seek God's face. Jacob. Well, what kind of example is Jacob? We see him as a bit of a model of scheming deviousness. That's what characterized most of his life, even from the moment of his birth onwards. But if we also remember Jacob as the one who spent one night wrestling with God, and in the morning when God sought to leave, hung on to him, clung on to him and said, I will not let you go unless you bless me. Clinging on by his fingertips, desperately wanting God's blessing. Jacob knew his desperate need of God. And it's in that sense, perhaps, that he is an example of the kind of person who comes into God's presence with his holiness. Blessed are the poor in spirit, said Jesus, who know their need of God. And then the third section, verses 7 to 10. And for all the suggestions about the original purpose of Psalm 24, why it was written, the setting most likely is to be the arrival of the Ark of the Covenant at the gates of Jerusalem. The Ark, of course, signifies God's presence. So when the Ark arrives, It's as if God himself arrives. No doubt there are sort of ancient, therefore liturgical reasons why the question and answer of verses 7 and 8 is effectively repeated in verses 9 and 10. But it also serves to reinforce something that we might otherwise choose to miss. Let's just read these verses 7 through to 10. Lift up your heads, O gates, be lifted up, you everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. Who is this King of glory? The Lord, strong and mighty, the Lord who is mighty in battle. And then the repeat. Maybe the procession's moved further on, maybe there's another call. Lift up your heads, O gates, be lifted up, you everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. There's the announcement. Then the question, who is this King of glory? And the reply thundered out, the Lord of armies. He is the King of glory. Armies is the correct translation there. And here I've got the Lord of hosts. It's the host of those who are in battle uniform. The Lord of armies. He is the King of glory. So who is this King of glory? Well, we already know from verses 1 and 2 that he is sovereign over the whole world. But here at the end of the psalm, we discover God's sovereignty doesn't mean that there isn't resistance to his kingship. That evidently there are still battles to be fought for this King of glory. For he is also depicted as a warrior God who leads a host of armies into battle. And that idea is picked up right at the very end, not just of this psalm, but of the whole Bible in Revelation 19:11 to 21, which we get the image of Jesus coming on the last day, but in the form of a warrior, not as a king, but as a warrior king, a warrior king. Dale Ralph Davis in his commentary writes this, and it's a good thought to end on. You have no comfort if the King of glory is a wimp who reeks of hand cream. You only have solace if he is your defender in the thick of war. And it may be that we don't face the same kind of wars as David and those who first sang this psalm, but we face plenty of other wars and are in one at the moment, of course, against coronavirus. To have a God who is a warrior king, a defender in the thick of war, brings us great comfort. Let us take a moment to pray. O Lord of hosts, by your Son's death on the cross, purify our hearts, that we may be amongst those who ascend the hill of the Lord and stand in the holy place in your presence, and that the King of glory may come in to our lives, the King who is your Son and our Redeemer, Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.